September 24th, regular business meeting of the Waynesboro City Council. Mayor, would you please into Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Remind those in attendance this evening that if you wish to speak at the citizen comment period, to please do so and sign up at the back of the room, right at the back of the council chambers. The first item of business this evening is consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Is any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next item would be the matters from council members. Do we have any matters from colleagues this evening?
I have some guests with me tonight. We've got the Girl Scout Troop 1185. They had me up to one of their meetings this past week. Very good meeting. They meet up at Rosenwald Community Center.
Wonderful.
Very good group of young ladies there, and I wanted to thank them for coming in tonight. And I also got a presentation.
Okay.
They have a very small flag they use for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh.
So, from here out, you've got a full size flag.
Yay. Awesome.
That's
Thank
all
you.
I have, Mr. Mayor.
Are we gonna mention the pie that's over here?
Oh,
chance?
well, that is something. They did bring pie in tonight
That's fantastic.
for their favorite speaker.
Yes, yeah. Thank y'all for being here.
I don't see any forks over there.
Yeah, exactly, or knives either. Great. Well, I just have a couple things I wanted to first just acknowledge and share appreciation for the 9/11 service. Dr. Hostler and I were able to join over at the fire department on a couple Tuesdays ago, and very much enjoyed that remembrance service for the heroes on that day. Next, I just want to take the time to express, I'm certain my colleagues' unified appreciation of the performance of staff during and through the events of the hurricane preparation from the police department, our fire department, the public works staff, just a tremendous job, Parks and Rec, and all involved to ensure the safety and security of residents here in the city. So much appreciated.
I do have one.
Yes.
Other item. I wasn't quick enough to get in there. I just wanted to announce that I'm going to start having constituent meetings at the French Press. I'm going to aim for the first Tuesday of the month at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I hope to come up with an evening hour too, but I'm going to set that off to, so that'll be the first Tuesday of October, which is the 2nd. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm going to see anybody who's interested in chatting about city matters then. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Just a couple of events that I attended the Shenandoah Valley Partnership Site Selection Group up at Weir's Cave last week, which was great, very well attended. It was sort of like speed dating for economic development, and but I really got to speak to a lot of folks from all over the country, looking at very much focused on agriculture and high-tech manufacturing and alike. So had some really enjoyable conversations with folks up there. And then lastly, both a professional and personal appreciation to staff and all involved in another successful Virginia Chili Blues and Brews Festival on Saturday. Just a great event, and appreciated that. So, does anybody have anything else to share? Great, thank you. Number 4 on the agenda is a resolution authorizing city manager to execute an agreement between the Virginia Department of Health and the City Council of Waynesboro for funding and services for the fiscal year 2019. Mr. Hamp.
Mr. Mayor, pardon me, and members of council, this is one of those items where you have limited ultimate discretion as to whether or not you participate or approve, but this is the annual agreement between our locality and the Virginia Department of Health, more specifically the Waynesboro East Augusta Health Department for fiscal year 2019. Each year we establish an agreement with the Commonwealth, and it specifies what the Commonwealth will fund the Waynesboro Health Department and what contribution financially the locality is obligated to make. Additionally, as an attachment to your council packet materials, there's also a list of services and programs that the health department is thereby obligated to deliver, and the various qualifying demographic factors which make folks eligible for those services. In the current fiscal year, the locality will contribute $214,618. That matches a contribution from the Commonwealth of about $314,000. Each locality has a formula, or excuse me, the contribution is established by a formula by the Commonwealth and the JLARC Commission. So that's the nature of our agreement. It's perfunctory, if you will, and but each year we go through a process by which I let you know what our contribution is and what services the community receives, and seeking your authorization by way of resolution for me to execute the agreement.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Hamp? Is there a motion to entertain the resolution, adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Number 5 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a retainer agreement for legal representation. Mr. Hamp.
Ms. Michelson is going to help us with this one.
Thank you.
This is a retainer agreement between Sands Anderson and the other law firms involved in the opioid litigation movement that's across the entire Commonwealth. There is about approximately 30 localities so far that have entered into a similar retainer agreement for these law firms to represent these localities in the opioid litigation, and the opioid litigation is against certain manufacturers, distributors, pharmacies, opioid-related entities that have caused and contributed to potential costs incurred by the city of Waynesboro relating to opioid injuries and opioid-related situations. So this retainer agreement just simply allows these law firms to represent the city on what's called a contingency basis. They take 25% of any damages awarded or settled to the city, and there's no actual attorney's fees costs to the city if there's no such award or damages settlement for that. The only thing the city would be responsible for is its pro rata share of any expenses, which could be significant, but they would be shared by all the localities that are participating in this opioid litigation. So this is, like I said, this is just the retainer agreement setting forth, those provisions and the relationship between the city and these attorneys, and it's sort of set forth in 2 phases. There's the phase 1, which is just sort of the investigative, review, and the city staff would help these attorneys look at the city's costs and expenses incurred relating to the opioid crisis, and then they would determine what, if any, damages that they felt the city would have directly related to the opioid crisis, and then confer back with the city and decide whether the city in fact wanted to go forward with step 2, which is the actual participation in the litigation. So this right now, getting in this retainer agreement is sort of just starting, okay, let's enter in phase 1, investigate what kind of issues the city may or may not have, and then we can proceed from there. So it's really not binding anything exactly right now. It's just sort of, let's start the process and see if the city's interested in joining the litigation.
Great. Any questions, Ms. Michelson?
In thinking about this, I would like to, at this point, to recuse myself from the vote today, just on the basis of being a practicing physician and having, a different role in that, in terms of prescribing and everything else, until I get a chance maybe to talk about, if there are particular reasons that that's a conflict of interest for me to be voting on this particular issue.
Okay,
So, but we could talk about that further.
okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as presented, authorizing the city manager to execute a retainer agreement for legal representation?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And one abstention. Great. Thank you. Next this evening is to consider a resolution declaring a local state of emergency and subsequently rescinding the same declaration of a state of emergency as it relates to city preparedness for Hurricane Florence. Mr. Hamp.
This is a cleanup item, administrative function that following our preparedness and the local declaration, it's necessary to formalize the declaration and then subsequent rescission, largely to preserve our eligibility for any FEMA reimbursement funds that might be available subsequent to the emergency.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there any questions, Mr. Hamp? Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 7 is to consider introducing an ordinance appropriating a portion of the government facilities maintenance reserve in the amount of $34,712 to the general fund for waterproofing and sump pump work at the police department. Mr. Hamp.
So, yes, Mr. Mayor and members of council, the appropriation ordinance is fairly straightforward. There are two elements to the project that is anticipated. The first being the installation of several sump pumps in that window well area, pardon me, and then flood-proofing the building by installing floodgates at several door penetrations. I had a council person ask for additional information, and at present, the construction bid that I have simply describes that particular element as install floodgate at personnel door, gate per attached data sheet. So if that's insufficient information, then I would request that if the council is comfortable doing so, introduce the ordinance this evening, and then I'll return with a more developed explanation of the flood-proofing element of the project.
Okay. Very good. Any questions, Mr. Hamp? Is there a motion to introduce the ordinance?
I'll make the motion.
Great. Thank you. Is there a second? Actually, we're just introducing ordinance this evening, so this matter will be considered at the following subsequent meeting. Thank you. Next on the agenda is number 8, to consider introducing an ordinance appropriating a Title III Immigrant Children and Youth Grant in the amount of $648 to the school funds to be used to purchase materials and supplies for Winona Elementary School. Mr. Hamp.
I'm checking one item here, Mr. Mayor. I believe that each of the appropriation ordinances, yes, that's correct, this evening, all involve exclusively federal funds. So we're not appropriating any local funds here, and so if that expedites our consideration, please take advantage of that information.
Could we do these in unison?
I think we could.
Yes.
What is the attorney's?
Okay. Yeah, there's so folks, so there's like 5 of them. And so rather than, we have those presented in the agenda, a Title III Immigrant Children and Youth Grant, an Inclusive Practice Partnership Grant for $2,500, a Title III No Child Left Behind Grant for $3,247, a Title VI-B Preschool Special Education Grant for $623, a Title VI-B Special Education Grant for $53,344. Again, all federal dollars to be pushed to the school system. So that being said, is there a motion to introduce these ordinances?
I'll make that motion.
Great, thank you. Number 9 on the agenda this evening is communication, correspondence, and calendar.
Sure. A couple of items, sir. I'd like to draw the public's awareness to the fact that in the council's consent agenda action this evening, we've rescheduled the regularly scheduled business meeting for Monday, October 8th to Wednesday, October 10th, due to the Columbus Day holiday. Secondly, on behalf of the staff, I would like to acknowledge and express appreciation for your complimentary and appreciative remarks concerning staff's performance in anticipation of Hurricane Florence. And one item of significant substance, I learned today that the the Commissioner of Revenue's office completed assessments for personal property vehicles, which is the car tax. You may recall that each year the council's presented a resolution establishing the rate of relief that the Commonwealth's funds that come to the locality extend to our taxpayers locally. Last year, we adopted, or the council adopted, a resolution affording 50%, and this is largely a math exercise. The commissioner looks at how far the state funds will go in terms of affording relief, and unless the council wishes to extend relief beyond what the state affords through local funds, we adopt a percentage that reflects that amount through the state. This year, the rate of relief will be 49%. As I said, I only learned of this today. I think the work was completed today. The treasurer intends to generate bills and mail bills for the convenience and benefits of our taxpayers. But what that means then is the first meeting in October, I would bring you a resolution establishing or confirming the rate of relief. And I just want everyone to be first comfortable with the notion that the rate is going to go down by 1%, aware and comfortable, and second, you'll have a piece of business that will seem a little bit out of order, and I don't want to create any unnecessary anxiety or concern through that. Can we proceed in that manner? From your perspective, we haven't had a chance to talk about that. So if you're comfortable with 49, head nods. If not, pound the table and say, no, go back to figure something out. Great, terrific.
A lot of heads nodding.
You did your math correct.
Right.
That's all I have this evening.
Okay, great, thank you. Next is citizen comment period.
Mr. Raymond LaFalk.
Thank you. Mr. LaFalk, if you could state your name and address for the record, and I would point your attention to this little device here that'll go green. That gives you the indication that you can go and start speaking. Yellow, just like a stoplight, and red, which asks you to close your comments at the time.
Raymond LaFalce, 2413 Monroe Street here in Waynesboro. Before I start, I'd just like to thank the council. You people don't get the thank yous sometimes, and I do feel that you should be. You guys did a great job with Florence and cordoning off streets and stuff, and I'm in emergency services. I'm a ham radio operator. So just from that point of view, a thank you. The reason I'm here is about the 13th Street and Rouser Road roundabout that we're thinking of. I come from New Jersey. New Jersey actually had greenhouses where they used to grow these roundabouts. And they found out that they didn't work. We had one, and it's still there. The donut was like 500 feet across. And the yield sign became a eye chart. The speed sign was just a number. And trailer trucks used to fall over around that turn, because they entered the roundabout doing 40 or 45 miles an hour, and when it was supposed to be 15. So I'm just sort of bringing an old thing forward to here. I think if you take a look at the corner of Monroe and Hopeman Parkway, you might be better off at that intersection of doing something like Monroe, but adding a center turn lane like there is there already on Hopeman for that street, and add some deacceleration lanes for right-hand turns. And with the technology today, they can have computers that will only turn the light red or green or whatever if there's a car parked, say in Compton Place or on 13th Street. And whatever you do there, if you're coming down 13th to Rouser, that corner where you make the right turn, you got to take that piece of that corner off because your turn is about 126 degrees to make that turn. You can't make that turn without taking part of that middle of the street out with you. So I just thought, instead of going through the work of putting in a roundabout, I think there's an easier way to do it. It'd be far less costly, and I'm sure you're going to have to buy property to do a roundabout, because there's definitely not enough property to do it. But you got enough property to do the turn lanes. And the people on Rouser, I know that's a 25-mile-an-hour zone there. I only wish they would go 25. So that's the presentation. As I say, I'm just bringing something forward. I'm old enough to have seen a lot of generations of things happen up in New Jersey. I'm down here 20 years. That's why I settled here, especially in Waynesboro. And look forward to doing the right thing here. And I just thought I'd bring that forward. I think there's only 3 left in New Jersey, the roundabouts, because they happen to be in an area where they're so big, it's hard to do anything else with them. So, but all of the little ones, they're gone. Now, that's a nice thing maybe out in the country, like behind Sam's Club. That works sometimes. But as I say, it's unfortunate that the yield signs are only eye charts, and people don't yield, and they don't follow speed limits on those things. So that was my whole thing, and I just hope that we can do something that's right for that piece of the road. And it is a little dangerous there. You got to be very, very careful with it. But if there's anybody that, wants to sit separately or ask me some questions, I've seen the whole gamut up in New Jersey.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. Anybody else?
No, but I have an item additionally
Sure.
For the closed session. So
Okay.
if, who's reading the motion on that?
Mr. Henderson.
Thanks.
Yes, I have. Mr. Mayor, I move to recess and the City Council of Waynesboro immediately reconvene to a closed meeting for the following purposes. Discuss the acquisition of real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect negotiating strategies of the public body, and authorized by Section 2.2-3711, Section A and 3 of the Freedom of Information Act, Code of Virginia, 1950, as amended. The subject matter of this meeting is... And what?
Let's see. Discussion and consult with the legal counsel, section 2.2-3211,
7.
7.
A7.
That's a German 7.
That's a German 7.
And the acquisition of real property by the landfill trustees at the regional landfill.
Thank you.
This requires a roll call vote.
Mayor Short,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Allen,
Aye.
Councilman Hofstadter,
Aye.
And we're in closed session. Motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the following resolution. Whereas the City Council of Waynesboro has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to the affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712 or the Code of Virginia requires certification by this city council that such closed meetings was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of Waynesboro hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting, to which this certification resolution applies, and 2, only such business matters where identified in the motion convened in closed meetings were heard, discussed, or considered by the City Council of Waynesboro.
So it requires a roll call vote.
Mayor Short.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Henderson.
Aye.
Councilman Allen.
Aye.
Councilman Hostetter.
Aye.
Okay. We're back in session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I think, is there a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.